Welcome to Film Dorks podcast number 9. And we are doing our third episode in our time travel series. So I'm Nick.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Lucas.
We're going to look at another franchise. Last time we looked at Back to the Future. This time we're looking at...
couldn't guess.
In the 21st century, a weapon will be invented like no other. This weapon will be powerful, versatile, and indestructible. This weapon will be called the Terminator.
You're dead, honey.
What day is it? The date?
12th May, Thursday.
What year? I'm here to help you. I'm Reese, DN 38416, assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination.
Why does it want me? Why me?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is the Terminator. Your future is in its hands.
We're talking Terminator. Now, obviously a time travel movie, but it's also a horror movie. The original one, at least.
Yes. Horror action.
It set the stage for a lot of things, like 80s sci-fi action. James Cameron's career. Arnold Schwarzenegger was already on his way, but, a lot of people in that movie were up-and-comers and, people that had worked in low-budget horror and stuff, and, it made a lot of careers and it made a lot of people famous.
Yeah, it launched so many careers. For example, James Cameron, worked under Roger Corman. That's where he got his start. He was doing a lot of visual effects. He directed Piranha 2, The Spawning.
The new breed is here. Faster, more ferocious, and infinitely more deadly. Piranha 2.
He was working as the second unit effects director, and they were having problems with the main unit director, and they weren't on. They were going over schedule and over budget, and they weren't getting the stuff that the studio wanted, and they were looking for a new director. And Roger Corman was walking around, and he saw James Cameron and a camera over a pile of like mealworms. And he rolled the camera and he said action, and the worms started like wriggling about. And then he said cut, and he cut the camera and the worms stopped. And what Corman didn't know was that Cameron had rigged the worms up with like an electrical grate underneath them, and they had just like turned some 12-volt power on when he said action. He was saying action to the effects guy, but Roger Corman saw him directing actual worms, and and he said, "Well, if he can do that, he can handle the rest of this movie." And he ended up making Cameron director of Piranha 2.
Have you guys watched Piranha 2 in a while?
No.
Honestly,
I won't.
It's better than the first one.
Oh, I'm sure.
This film, Terminator, really launched Cameron's career, but he was kind of on his way up, just like Schwarzenegger as well.
Yeah.
When this one was made, because
maybe not as much as Schwarzenegger though, because he was already Mr. Olympia. He had several films under his belt and in production as well.
Well, Conan, the first Conan, already had come out, and that was huge.
Well, they had to postpone filming this for like 9 months so that he could finish Conan. And
The Destroyer,
at that time,
though, right?
I know that Cameron, part of the deal was that he had to write another movie, which happened to be Aliens.
That's not true, Nick. He wrote Rambo 2 while in
Rambo 2.
discussions to do Aliens. I guess maybe he did write Aliens too. Then.
No, he did write Aliens.
Okay.
He was writing Aliens and that sequel,
And
as
First
well
Blood
as
Part 2, yeah.
and First Blood Part 2, as well as rewriting Terminator throughout those whole 9 months, and he had to finish all 3 projects. Like, I guess
What a
whatever he was doing.
slacker.
Yeah, I know, totally. I'm like,
Well,
what a fucking
you said,
animal.
but he was also outlining all 7 of the Avatar films at that point. So.
I wouldn't fucking doubt it, man. Yeah, but that's just like really cool to see just that time period of just how many people got launched and came from it. So Gail Ann Hurd produced The Terminator, and she was Corman's assistant. And she went on, so she produced Terminator with Cameron, but then she went on to do Aliens, The Abyss, Alien Nation, Tremors, T2, No Escape, The Ghost in the Darkness, Armageddon, Hulk, Eon Flux, and The Walking Dead, just to name a few of her credits. Yeah, Cameron has a tendency to pick extremely talented, badass women to work with, which I think is somewhat similar to the guy John Carpenter, who he copied to make Terminator, because he was kind of riffing off of Halloween, supposedly. He was inspired by that one.
Which makes sense, and you can feel that in this first film. And that's the one thing that's really interesting about this particular film. One, it's fucking incredible. It's an amazing movie, and it's no small feat because, you know, it wasn't like he was about to make a huge name for himself, but he hadn't quite made a huge name for himself yet. You know, he was on the cusp of all these huge movies, but so his budget wasn't insane. And the fact that he definitely, you know, you can feel that Carpenter, you know, Michael Myers kind of stalking vibe throughout this whole thing, and the way like it's shot, how dark it is.
Yeah, I think almost the entire production was at night.
It's an amazing combination of action and horror.
Actually, one of the daytime scenes was the first time the Terminator kills somebody. Is the first Sarah Connor that he kills.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Woman in the neighborhood is that's a daytime scene, and there's like a weird continuity error there that Arnold's hair is way longer and droopier than it was in the rest of the movie. It's more of a brush cut or, you know, whatever. And they filmed that part afterwards, and he was already going back into bodybuilding at that point, and they stole that whole scene of him pulling up and running over the little toy truck, and he really...
Which is interesting because that toy truck, really quick, is the same model of the truck that runs him over later in the film.
Yeah, and he also he really broke the window in that car because it wasn't a movie set; it was just him and James Cameron and a camera.
Love it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's the way this movie's done, and this is one. I mean, for all in this whole franchise, no matter how many times I've seen this movie, and still today in 2020, this movie completely holds up, like on almost every level. You know, a couple of you know, in terms of effects stuff, but because of the limitations.
But still, even those effects, I think, hold up better than a lot of the CGI.
I agree.
From now.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's another thing is Stan Winston did the effects on this.
Jim wanted to see some other variations because he's also an artist who wants, you know, choices. We went through some variations, some sculptures of different possibilities for the look of the endoskeleton, and we ended up going right back to the initial concept.
Well, I mean, literally all of it's practical because CGI basically didn't exist at that point. I mean, if you know, the stuff that they overlaid on the Terminator's vision was about it, you know, I mean, and next to Tron, which was being made with like NASA supercomputers and stuff, the original Tron, I mean, the basic story here is a love story too, you know, I mean, it's you know, Kyle Reese travels across time for Sarah Connor, and, you know, in doing so creates this weird time loop, and just so happens to coincide with the end of the world. But really, like, you know, I mean, it's like it's kind of 3 movies wrapped into one, and they're all good movies. So you know, you really get like the full package.
Yeah,
there.
the balance really works in this film. And Arnold's performance, he's great in it, you know. And it's funny too because in Conan he only had like 24 lines of dialogue, and in this movie he only had 14 through the whole movie. But he's fucking awesome. He just
no, they saw him act. They saw him act in Hercules Goes Bananas.
Oh yeah.
I am tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
Tired or not, you're staying here.
Do you guys know who else they had asked before him though? Before they actually casted Arnold, do you know who they had been going after? Okay, Sylvester Stallone, Melvin Gibson, and O.J. Simpson. And do you know why they didn't go with O.J. Simpson? They didn't believe he was a killer. Well, he was like unbelievable. He's too nice of a guy. Yeah, exactly. He's too nice of a guy. But I think what you just said about Arnold Schwarzenegger really makes the film. Like, listen, I love Kyle Reese. What's his name? The actor.
Michael Biehn.
Michael Biehn. This is one of his best roles, and the reason why it's so rewatchable is it's like the casting is perfect. Like, down the line. And Arnold Schwarzenegger though is fucking terrifying. Oh, Lance Henry. Oh, the cops are some of my favorite characters in this. They're
great.
Just so fucking.
Bill Paxton.
Yeah, Bill Paxton gets a one cameo. But truly though, like Schwarzenegger was fucking terrifying in this film. And I don't think they ever made a Terminator film after this, unfortunately. Like it was cool twisting it, making him the hero. It was almost like WWF. Like you suddenly have the heel becomes the face. But then after that, they never had a Terminator that was intimidating. And maybe it's partly because of they never really did a horror film well after that. It was mostly like action films. And it also has what you said about the effects. It's all body horror. In the 80s, body horror was such a big deal. Like, like Videodrome, The Fly, Cronenberg, anything Cronenberg did. And this film really stays true to that. RoboCop, yeah, like there's so much good body horror of this era, and it's, that's why the effects I think hold up, is because they look fleshy and bloody and real, and I think they never it's like we never got back to that.
As a sci-fi piece, there haven't been much in the way of time travel movies, and what had been, are mostly like
The Time Machine.
Everybody turns into hippies. Yeah. Everybody turns into hippies in the future, and this is like, holy shit. No, there's death robots, and it was kind of a first of its kind in that sort of, vision. I mean, I guess Blade Runner was somewhat similar, but that was time travel related. So.
Well, he got sued. There's an Outer Limits episode that Ellison claims Cameron ripped him off. So I watched that. It's called Soldier. And I watched it just to see if there was any kind of merit to it. And I can tell you, maybe a little bit. It's about these soldiers from the future in this dystopian future that's like a wasteland, and they're fighting each other, and then they get, blasted back in time into an alleyway, and then cops show up. So that seems a little bit similar, and that's it. That's when the similarity ends. And I'm like, I cannot believe I don't even think they actually won a court case. I think Paramount whatever just settled out of court, and I don't know why they did. And Cameron was pissed about it because truthfully, even though the setting's a little bit there's no love story, there's no AI, there's no robots. It's it's laughable that
soldiers
people would
went back
consider that
in time
to be
basically.
It's soldiers give me a fucking break.
Cameron has said in the past that when he was in Italy, that he got he came down with a really bad fever. I forget what kind of, he got some really bad.
I think he got food poisoning or something.
Something like that. And during his fever, he had this nightmare where he saw the Terminator, and then he wrote.
That's pretty cool.
From that. Whether or not it was in his subconscious that he had seen Outer Limits, maybe, or
still,
who knows, but
whatever. I agree.
He wrote it, but it's one of those things. It's water under the bridge.
I think even if he was somewhat inspired by it's totally his film. Give me a break. That's really disingenuous. I think to claim it was ripped off. Anyway.
When something makes blah blah $1 million, then a lot of people come out of the woodwork.
Oh, yeah.
So one thing about this, it's in terms, time travel.
Time travel movies. This is it's a closed loop, single timeline kind of a movie. Well, at least the first one is. And then as we progress into the sequels and stuff, it gets
a little. But the first one works. It works fairly well. It doesn't need a lot of explanation. Yep.
It's a complete closed loop, though, of cause and effect, which I love. The paradox actually doesn't exist because it completely finishes its story, right? Like, there's no contradiction.
And the other thing there, I mean, this is something that is a testament to Cameron's intelligence, is they called it time displacement equipment. He never called it time travel equipment. Mm-hmm. And like the whole idea there was that it took whatever matter was in this time and like
displaced it,
swapped it with, displaced it. And they've shown different versions of that over the years as the like effects got bigger and better, and like in T2, computers got all computery. And
I love how he also solved one of the issues with time travel in it, where why don't they just bring back like killer robots with all these like machine guns and laser weapons and plasma rifles? And he says, no, that has to be covered in organic matter, which totally doesn't make really much sense scientifically. Who cares? But it really limits the effectiveness of the killers that come back. And that it's just such an iconic image of the naked,
I mean, it works.
Time travel guys.
But that's the thing.
It's such a clever
first
idea.
One is
it totally works in the first
and
two.
in the second one, which is a lot of fucking fun. But I think that's where they made the major error that ruined the franchise, really. And I love T2, but it kind of ruined Terminator, and it's because they did the switch with the story and made Arnold's character, the Terminator character, a good guy.
But there's probably a whole bunch of reasons for that. First of which being that Arnold Schwarzenegger was a much, 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 much bigger star at that point, with a lot more bargaining power and a lot more say in how his character is portrayed on screen. And he'd been, for the most part, playing heroes. In most of his career, he was a hero. I mean, the first Terminator's kind of a departure there, actually.
Well, you know why he did it, though, is because he thought it would, like, even if it was a failure, what's the big deal? Like, it's such a small budget movie. He kind of didn't really give a shit about it. So when it became this smash, one of the best
Well, he must
hits
have
of the
cared
year,
about it a little, because I know he spent
him.
months training with guns, to the point where, and he had to be ambidextrous. So he would be doing like exercises with guns, like he did it blindfolded day after day after day, taking guns apart and put them together,
But I think it's just a testament to how Arnold approaches his work. Like, he's gonna
cared enough to fucking make himself. He wanted to be able to be robotic. He wanted to be able to to fire and to cock guns and to fucking reload guns without not only just not looking at them, but not blinking.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so terrifying about his character in this is he feels like a killer. Like, the look on his face and his eyes, it's just like this blank robotic stare that is really well done.
Well, in Soldier of Fortune too, they actually gave him props for his handling of guns in the movie, and they usually just rip movies apart for the way they handle.
Oh, really?
Guns.
Nick, you're totally onto something. Where I did think the series never recovered from that, but part of the reason is because they never should have had him in a movie again, and it's not really on Schwarzenegger or on them, because he was the only really marketable, bankable star to bring back. But like, they never should have brought him back again. It makes no fucking sense why they kept bringing him.
Well, his image is in every movie.
He was just one model of a Terminator, which, by the way, but how stupid is it of Cyberdyne to keep making the same model look the same? Humans recognize faces more than almost anything else. So you would at least think each model would have
you
like
do gotta
different
say, like,
faces.
the fact of the matter is that he comes back as a good guy in the second one, and he's a good guy in pretty much all of them.
In the third one, he was originally a bad one, because if you remember, he killed John Connor in the future, and then they sent that model back, and which I thought actually made sense. Like, maybe John Connor, they sent him in because he would fondly remember that model and think of him as, oh, that was like my father figure, and then that's how he got killed. And I think they allude to it in the third one, which is interesting.
So do I. I just watched
but I have a lot of issues with the third one.
There's a whole deleted scene in the third movie where they introduce Master Sergeant William Candy, who's played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he's got this real big, silly Southern accent.
Hi, I'm Chief Master Sergeant William Candy. I was honored to be selected by CRS in the ongoing effort to save American lives.
I don't know about that accent.
And he's like walking around this Cyberdyne Systems lab talking about how they're building like basically the Terminator after his likeness.
Oh Jesus, I'm glad they cut that.
As far as the whole like him looking the same and everything, there's a couple of like sort of reasons you could postulate there. First off, Kyle Reese when he's first talking to Sarah Connor, said like the 600 series had rubber skin and we spotted them easy. But then the computer, Skynet learned how to make cyborgs. And so then it started making cyborgs. Why they all look the same, that's a whole other thing. But then it figured out how to make the T-1000, which can change its look. And so
right, that's what I was going to say.
It's learning, it was getting on to other things, and then it made the TX, and then it made the T whatever. For this to have been originally written in like 80, 82, 83, somewhere in there, I mean, it's
for sure
ahead of its time and pretty well thought out for then. And then,
oh hell yeah,
10 years later and $150 million later, they're not just making a little bitty movie anymore. They're also making a big tentpole movie for a studio that wants the audience to go on a ride. So I'm sure that they would never have been allowed to make another little small movie, but so they decided to go real big, and they made the biggest movie ever at that point.
Same make.
These were taken at the West Highland Police Station, 1984. You were there.
Same model.
These were taken today.
You have to let me see my son. He's in great danger.
New mission. Once, he was programmed to destroy the future.
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things.
Now, his mission...
Get down.
...is to protect it.
Mom! Come with me if you want to live.
And his enemy...
He's a Terminator like you, right?
Not like me.
...is the deadliest machine ever built.
Can it be destroyed?
Unknown.
This time, there are two. Terminator 2.
Trust me.
Well, the liquid Terminator, metal Terminator was supposed to be in the first one, but Cameron was like, I don't have the special effects technology to pull it off, so he brought it back for the second one. And I take it back when I said that Arnold was the only scary Terminator, because my God, actually,
he was
great.
Yeah, he was pretty intense.
Because you thought it was like how I remember being a kid watching it in the theater and being like, I don't think they're gonna win this one. You're like, how are they gonna defeat this thing? It's fucking unstoppable.
I mean, yeah, it is. Except they definitely don't use that horror trope with him.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
he's
the
scary.
same.
He's intense because of he like you said, he seems unstoppable. He can melt through bars. It's fucking crazy. He was kind of scary. It's just they didn't film it in a way that had that horror vibe to it. They could have, but
it's the same thing that he did with Aliens, because Alien, the first one, was a straight horror film in space, and the second one was a horror action. And I now in rewatching it more and more as I get older, it's an action movie that has horror elements. And I can say the first Terminator is
unless you watch the director's cut, that's got more horror to it.
But it's still also less of a horror film and more of an action adventure film with horror elements. And Terminator 2 is an action adventure film with some slasher horror elements. But not really, actually. It's more just a straight...
It's much more of a sci-fi action.
Yeah, for sure.
They lean into the time travel in this one a little bit,
Well, we should talk about that, because I think the first two really are great bookends, for how Like the sequel does a wonderful job of saying, okay, the first one was this perfect closed loop of like he gets sent back to then, you know, create John Connor, right? Like, and then the end of the world's going to happen. And then the second one, they pull on those threads and say, okay, it actually happened because they sent the Terminator back, which actually caused. So it was this great cause and effect, and it became a paradox. And by creating that paradox, they also have the time theory that you can change your fate. So it isn't a closed loop. Like, in fact, you can influence the past, which is why they sent the Terminator back to do that anyway, was to kill, you know, John Connor's mother. What is it? They call it the abortion, the temporal abortion or something?
No, retroactive.
Yeah, retroactive. Yeah.
Which is a great term. But no, but they, you know, the second one is like, no, we actually can completely control our fate. And I love that that's like it's kind of like a perfect follow-up, which then they negate in the third one, right? Which I think almost like loses its impact.
Well, when you get to the third one, like, yeah, it definitely starts to really, I mean, it tries to stick as tight as it can to the paradox that it's creating. But it's also very paint by numbers. Now, it's not horrible, but it's not great.
We haven't even talked about 2 yet, though. Let's not get ahead.
Oh yeah, we can. Let's dive back into 2, then we into 3.
So when 2 was in development, they came out with a teaser trailer for it, which was one of the first times that sort of big of a movie was building buzz that early. And when they dropped the same make, same model, new different mission teaser, it sort of like blew up the hype to an unbelievable level. And I remember when I first saw it, I just couldn't contain myself. It was like 1990, late 1990, and it was going to come out in 91, the summer. So it was like 6 months or more ahead of time. And like I don't remember anticipating a movie coming out that much ever. Maybe Batman, the Michael Keaton Batman, but like when it started getting press and stuff, like it was apparent that they were going huge on the marketing on this movie. Like everything about it was huge.
Watch out. Terminator 2 Judgment Day at a theater near you. And now, only at Subway, the First Terminator Collector Cup, filled with 32 ounces of your favorite soft drink.
You know, it was about as hyped of a movie as you could get. And then when it paid off, you know, it blew up into one of the biggest blockbusters ever. It just took over everything. You know, it terminated. It created a verb.
So it was the top grossing movie of 91.
Yeah.
Can you guess what number 2 was?
Jeez.
You won't guess it. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's weird.
So I'll tell you, that movie fucking sucks.
Yeah, that movie's terrible.
Beauty and the Beast was 3, Disney, and number 4 was Hook.
Huh. Wow. Yeah. T2 is the best out of all those for sure.
Yeah, by far.
I mean, that
it was a fucking ton of fun.
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun.
It's so fun.
And the effects were like, holy shit, I can't believe the liquid metal stuff that they did in that. I was blown away by. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, people barely had an idea that CGI was even happening at that point.
No, yeah. Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park were the ones.
Predator, Cameron made a splash a couple years barely a year earlier with The Abyss and all the liquid.
That's true.
Tentacle thing. And that certainly led to this. I mean, he said as such, you know, I mean, once they perfected that, he knew that he could do T2. One of the other things that was neat was obviously they choose to focus on John Connor as a young boy here, and they made a point in promoting the fact that they hired Edward Furlong basically as a homeless runaway teenager. He was not an actor. He had never been in any movies before.
Did you call moi A dipshit.
Which turned out to be apparent.
Yeah.
I mean, he's easily the
weakest
the
link of the
worst part
film, for sure.
movie.
He is,
Yeah.
absolutely. He gets so annoying at points.
The idea that he's just sort of plucked somebody from obscurity at that point, at that age, was really neat to people of that age at that time.
Yeah, and as a kid who was around that age, I liked him when I was a kid. I mean, I think now as an adult rewatching, you can.
He didn't bug me as much
see.
when I first saw it, but I was younger,
Yeah.
and this, there was so much about this movie that blew me away. Anyways, just the
I had
insane
some
action
problems
sequences
with it.
and stuff.
Like I thought he would have been like more of a tough guy and more of like a kind of a hard ass.
Yeah, like a rebel.
But I like the. I mean, I personally like the choice that he's not that, because it seems so odd. You're like, so this is going to be the leader of the fucking resistance? Like, there's something interesting about that for me that I liked when I watched it when I was younger. That frustrated me with number 3, because it's like they continue that character into be in high school, and I'm like, okay, this guy sucks. Like, he should not be the leader.
He's kind of annoying when you get to 3.
But you get Sarah Connor. The choice he made with Sarah Connor's character is fucking
awesome.
Incredible.
Yeah.
One of the most badass female characters in any series ever.
And her introduction is incredible too, when they just show her doing pull-ups and
the fucking pull-ups.
Good morning, Dr. Silberman. How's the knee?
Well, also the fact that she's damaged. It's not that she's like just tough.
No,
she's also so like psychologically scarred from it, and that's her journey. The second one has a great emotional arc for Sarah. She gets to she's doing what she needs to do to protect her son and to like save all of humanity. That's a lot to put on their shoulders. And then to see how that psychologically fucked her up from the first one, and then she grows. Just like the first one had the love story, this one has a really great mother-son relationship that you rarely get in films, I think.
Yeah. And she said something in the first movie. I didn't ask for this honor, and I don't want it. That she was thrust into this unwillingly in the first place. Then falls in love. Her only true lover dies like 2 days later. Then she has a kid.
Gets brutally murdered in front of her. Yeah.
Right. The kid is supposed to be the leader of humanity after the world ends, and she has to carry that all, and then everybody.
Yeah, and what kind of mother is not going to like make sure he has all of his training before the world ends, right? Like, that's really on her. That sucks. That's not nice, man.
Yeah.
She's really good at laying on that sass in this movie. She's really got like that sort of chip on her shoulder about.
No, I love her rants when she goes into those fucking crazy rants. I mean, that makes me love that character so much, is how righteous and fucking pissed off she is.
Fucking men like you built the hydrogen bomb. Men like you thought it up. I think you're so creative. You don't know what it's like to really create something, to create a life. Feel it growing inside you. All you know how to create is death and destruction.
Mom! No, but Miles Dyson is a fascinating character because he's like the only black character that gets killed off in it. Spoiler. But he's like, the moral weight of ending the world is on his shoulders, and we get to like see this guy sacrifice his life. So there's a lot of really good emotional, heavy moments that personally I don't think Cameron ever fully was as effective after this film.
I don't know how much longer I can hold this.
Like, no matter what other film he did after this, like The Abyss was before, and then this was like a good drama action film, and then like what does he have after this that truly, like, Avatar was
Titanic.
I don't know.
Super emotional,
True Lies had
emotional diarrhea.
Go back and rewatch it. They're not
terrible.
great. I mean, they're great. They're entertaining,
Titanic
but this
sucks.
is like he never. This is the pinnacle of Cameron for me. This is peak James Cameron. And even though Titanic made more money and will be remembered more fondly than Terminator 2, for me it will always be Terminator 2. Is like the peak James Cameron. Then it was like slow descent.
that's not all that there is for Sarah Connor either. I mean, they really pile it on for her. I mean, not only is she locked up and medicated here for, I mean, what seems like a long time, but then they introduced this orderly Dougie is like sexually abusing her.
Oh yeah, ugh.
And they sort of dangle this carrot of freedom and seeing her son in front of her, and then just like sort of cruelly pull it away. And but then it makes the escape and you know, the revenge and stuff so much more sweeter. I guess that's really the payoff. That's where we really see the T-1000 coming through in a big way too, with walking through the bars, and the psychiatrist sees that, and I mean he's you know, already questioning his sanity with seeing Arnold again at this point. And it's nice that they continue that character through the series. That's one of my favorite things that they do carry. But
the callback at the guy in the third.
Dr. Silverman. The rest of the movie from there is just like a big giant chase, other than trying to blow up the beginnings of Skynet.
But there's that one dream or nightmare sequence where she sees the atom bomb go off.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that on VHS with my dad, who's a nuclear physicist, and he's like, "Wow, that's the most accurate recreation I've ever seen of a nuclear blast." And like that's haunted me because it's like they get everything right. Like you see the flash, and then it's the explosion, and then the flesh melts off, and then the explosion blows the ashes around. It's like
it's
really
super
fucking
cool.
well done, dude. Like Cameron, I got so much respect for him, man, for being a special effects guy.
He's
like
brilliant.
all his films, even Avatar.
As awesome as that sequence is, though, there's one really bad mistake in it. There's a bus that famously, like, the roof flaps open and then it
flies away
from the camera, and when you see the underside of the bus, it's just flat.
I never noticed that.
I never noticed it.
They built it out of gaff tape and show cards.
There are hundreds of mistakes and like anachronisms and all kinds of stuff in T2. There's another sequence in this movie where it's the tow truck that drives off of the overpass and chases John Connor through the floodplains there. When that truck hits the ground, you can see both front wheels folded.
Dukes of Hazzard style, baby.
Which means that it wouldn't be drivable at all.
The T-800, fucking, it's the reprising of Schwarzenegger for this role. They gave him something more to do, and I think it honestly, Schwarzenegger's a pretty decent actor. I don't think he actually ever gets enough credit for the fact that he created a new character for this, and he's like similar to we talked about in the Monsters podcast. He's like one of the most charming parts of the film, right? Like seeing the Terminator become like the face, right? The good guy in this film is a fun journey as well. And I think Schwarzenegger brings humanity to, subtle humanity to this robot character that is wasted and misused in the third one, which we'll talk about. But it's really works. Unless you've seen the, what's it called? The director's cut. Have you guys watched that?
Oh yeah.
Of T2? I'm not a fan.
Say, this
what is
the
that?
one that this is the
nice. It's got like the hologram in it.
Yeah.
Is that the laser disc?
No. It's the VHS.
Wow.
Oh, fuck. Wow. Ugh. Is it even worth it? I guess it's worth it as a collector's item.
Well, I mean, it's like it's been watched like twice.
Is it? Is it widescreen?
Yeah, it's
okay.
the ultra everything edition as far as VHSs go, but.
So what was your thoughts on it, Tom? Because I'm usually a hater of those things, but what about you?
I understood why it was in there. I understood why it was shot, and I understood why they cut it. It's a great scene. What we're talking about is when they're in the garage, they decide to. Well, the Terminator informs them that his learning chip is turned off. His AI is on read-only mode, so he's just running what he's programmed to do. And they decide that if they can open him up and get at his chip, that they can switch it into learning mode and make him more of an asset to them for survival. So they do that, and they have this whole elaborate scene where the Arnold's giving them instructions on how to operate on his own skull while looking at it in a mirror, and the camera is over his shoulder, and you see him in the mirror talking, and they use Linda Hamilton's twin there as well. But they do this whole elaborate scene where it's all mimicked in a mirror, and it's like 12 minutes long. The mirror part's not that much, but they cut his head open, they take his chip out, they're gonna switch it over to learning mode, and then that gives Sarah the moment that she's been waiting for to actually kill this thing when it's completely defenseless. John Connor, this is his first moment to like take charge, and he says no, that we need this thing, and you have to trust it, and you have to trust me. And that was kind of his first moment as a leader, which is, it's a great scene. But in the theatrical release, they just blow by all that, and they just say, oh yeah, he's learning.
Because it honestly really isn't necessary for the story. I can understand for character-wise, it makes a little sense. But honestly, it slows the movie down a lot. And also, it's not just that scene. They have so many other moments with John Connor and the Terminator that are, like, they use the scraps of it. That's perfect. Yeah, like all these little things work, but when they load the movie up with them, I'm telling you, it just doesn't land. And maybe it's partly because they used a young actor who was not really trained.
Well, I think part of it is because they do that to the Terminator character. And honestly, like, and again, like I said before, I love this movie for what it is, but I think that's the big mistake. And I think, and none of that really worked for me. And then when they carry it over into the next
it's the worst.
It gets silly. That's when
they get progressively sillier too, man. Like
right, and the third one tries at comedy, like the talk to the hands stuff.
When you start parodying your original concept is when you're done.
You're close. Talk to the hand. Now.
Oh, they did Indiana Jones. So remember when the first one starts with the fucking Indiana Jones starts with the Paramount logo, then it turns into like the mountain. And then in the Crystal Skull, it starts with a mountain, it turns to a fucking molehill. That's the joke, and I'm like, yeah, that's your movie. It's a fucking joke. It's a piece of shit. If you're gonna turn mountains into molehills, you're a piece of shit. Anyway, that's
something pretty major happened in between 2 and 3.
Oh yeah, yes. Talk about that. Wait, are you done with 2 though, Tom? Do you feel like you did 2 justice before we move on?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of the most
closing in on an hour,
and like it's one of the most well-known movies out there, and there's a lot of details that people know about already. I mean, there's not a whole lot of secrets about this movie anymore. But when it did come out, it made a shit ton of money, and Carolco Pictures was the company that was making these, and they went on to make Cutthroat Island, which Rennie Harlan directed.
that was a great movie.
And well, what happened with
poor Gina Davis, I love her.
We could have a whole podcast about that. But
Matthew
Cutthroat
Modine.
Island was the most expensive failure at the time ever.
Right. I mean, I remember it getting a lot of bad press.
Yeah, it was like Heaven's Gate levels of disaster, and it made Carolco go bankrupt. And in that process, they had to sell off the Terminator franchise. And it was bought, by these people that saw that, T2 just made like, a XX portion of $1 billion. Every movie since then has been just chasing the dragon of T2's success. Yeah. And it's been, it's been a money grab and a, rehashing of everything, and all these producers and creatives giving their little producery input, and it's really,
and let's ride on nuggets of nostalgia, and callbacks that don't work, I mean, you definitely see it when it comes into 3 for sure. And again, 3 doesn't suck, but it was very paint by numbers. It got a little sillier. It really started to fucking make a mess of the time travel stuff. Like you're like, okay, wait, what? All right, okay, so that's going on now, and now his mom's dead.
Yeah, the whole point of 3 was
leukemia.
that 2 ended with actually you can control your fate from a time travel perspective. Like the decisions you make now will affect the future. And then number 3 was like, never mind, that's all bullshit.
Yeah,
it's a closed loop, just like the first one, and like it totally negates it. And so it was frustrating watching it because you can tell exactly what you guys said. It's a total money grab, and they to the point where it has decent action scenes. Like I actually love the car chase
actually,
and Arnold Schwarzenegger getting put through fucking buildings.
Is fun.
But it's like so boring, and it's like the female Terminator in it is just like
doesn't work.
She's like not
really
intimidating, and suddenly she has a gun that she can bring back now too. It's like they.
Right.
And also,
but
why
then
do they show up naked
it's just
again?
A flamethrower.
Yeah, like it's so fucking weird. And but my whole big issue with it is, what are they trying to say with it? It was John Connor, and actually I liked Claire Danes is decent in it, and I kind of liked the fact that it was like it was supposed to be about the two of them. But so my whole premise on like if they asked me for like script notes before filming, I would have said your script is bullshit. You need to, if you're gonna completely nuke the second film, that should have happened after the first act. Like, it should have started like you were gonna do the rehash, and then they should have blew up the whole fucking world. And then suddenly it's John Connor and this Claire Danes girl in the fucking...
Surviving the wasteland.
Right. And he has to, like, both of them have to rise up to become leaders. And that would have been a fucking interesting film to watch. Instead, that happens at the end. Spoiler, but it's like they take the whole movie to get to the interesting part, and it's actually not bad. Like, when it happens, I was like, okay, you kind of like negated the last one, but like it just took too long, and it was rehashing way too long. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's character is pointless, and like honestly, I feel like he phoned that one in.
See, and that's what I'm talking about.
He was
like,
vocal about not wanting to do it. He
talked
to James Cameron, he said, I don't
that.
want to do it. Linda Hamilton didn't want to do it, and she didn't do it, so they killed her. But Schwarzenegger, Cameron said, basically like, if you do it, just make him pay you a lot, and that's literally what he did.
Fair enough.
He had this like famously just massive contract. He got like 29 or 30 million up front, plus this like giant perk package with
back
like
end.
Oh, so it was essentially
and
it's Sigourney Weaver doing Alien 4.
Yeah.
Where she's like, well, they put a dump truck of money, they pulled it up to my house, and I was like, I will make your movie. So, by the way, that director did Breakdown and U-571, which are two good movies. I like both of those. Sure. So he wasn't a bad director, and honestly, technically, it's not bad. It's just
no, and you get like you said, some of the action sequences are fucking great in it. The fight sequence is amazing at the end with the two of them just smashing like.
Where he dumps her into a toilet, you mean?
Yeah, where he fucking head dumps her in there, and then
she pretty wonky CG.
She throws him into the fucking ground, and he's like so heavy it just crushes.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's
a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's just not scary, and
there's no real emotional content to it. No. You know, like we don't get anything new from John Connor's character.
No, he's so pathetic
at all in the whole movie. It's blah.
Yeah, I don't think he was a great casting choice. He's a good actor, but I just think miscast for this.
Well, they cast him afterwards. Him and Eddie Furlong.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kind of like this John Connor curse, but like him and Eddie Furlong both had a big problem.
Well, there is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Stahl, I think definitely gets more work, but has obviously had some issues. But yeah, it's where, and at 3 is where it just stops. And it goes
maybe we should then quickly talk about Salvation.
The next 3 movies. Yeah.
And we can run through them because they're not really worth talking about that much.
No, they're not.
The weird
That's
thing about Salvation is it's not even a time travel movie. There's the only time travel in it is Marcus dies and then wakes up as a cyborg.
So it's almost like, what is it? Futurama time traveling, right?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. But but that movie, so I was like, why did I hate this movie?
to watch this movie.
It's so boring.
No, but I started it, and I'll tell you.
I just tried to watch it. I couldn't get through it.
I started it, and I was like, hey, wait, I think this might be better than I remembered. And like, I was like a third of the way through it. I'm like, I'm kind of into this movie. And then it hits, like halfway through, it hits a wall, and it's like, but then it just becomes like climbing over broken glass to get through that fucking thing. And it's the dumbest ending. The dumbest fucking ending.
Dude, I'm telling you, I didn't enjoy it as much as you. Apparently, because I swear to God, 10 minutes in that film, and I was just like, okay.
Well, no, but there's no plot really. Like I was like,
all the dialogue is exposition. There's no character arcs really, other than Marcus realizes he's a robot and he's sad about that. And
I like seeing Helena Bonham Carter show up.
Well, I mean,
it doesn't make any fucking sense why she's there.
He was supposed to be on a death sentence for murdering people, and he didn't think that he deserved to live again, and so he was pissed off about that. But then he decided to use it as a second chance. That's really it. That's as far as that plot goes, and the rest of it is just like. It's a shitty meatloaf of the first three movies, like all these little plot points, all this exposition and backstory.
Yep.
And it doesn't go anywhere.
Through like different shots that are just made bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And
dude, I'm so over it. So 3 started it, which is like, well, 2 actually started with "Come with me if you want to live," which made sense plot wise. That's what Reese said to Linda or whatever, to Sarah Connor. So that's what, so that's what he programs into the Terminator to say to her, so she knows to trust it. And then after that movie, it's like that stupid Star Wars bullshit where they like I have a bad feeling about this. Like, we fucking get it. Like, no more of this like bullshit callback.
This one goes like really, really far into it. Like,
I know. Right.
There's
like,
a
everything's
shot,
a callback.
There's a shot where the Terminator endoskeleton's head gets cut off. And it goes up, and like the face, like the camera's looking down, and the face of the Terminator comes up at the camera. That was a shot that was in the Terminator 3D Battle Across Time live action thing at Universal Studios.
This is all Tom.
They go so deep into the nostalgia in Salvation. It's unbelievable. It's
for nothing. Like, there's no fucking
remember
story.
That thing?
But
remember that line of dialogue, and remember this other part of this other movie that you saw. Like,
but at the end of it, you don't feel like you watched a fucking Terminator movie.
There's no fucking story, dude.
You just, if you can get through the movie, good for you. It's awful, and you know what's funny?
It's a nice Christian Bale callback there too.
Yeah.
Because Christian Bale famously in his rant during this movie,
right?
Good for you.
Good for you.
It was this film.
Good for you. It was that film, and I could see why. It was such a piece of shit.
Oh, good for you.
He must have been embarrassed.
He must have been pissed off. Yeah.
And but the thing is, they get even worse after this.
Yeah.
The movies.
I don't know. It's hard to say worse, but you're right.
They do.
The next one made even less sense, which is saying something. Because this Salvation made no fucking sense. I was like, what are they trying to say with this film? And what was it about? I can't even tell you. And then what was the next one after it? It was
Genesis. Terminator Genesis.
Which, again, they get really good actors.
They had what's her face from Game of Thrones. I know.
They also, but then what's his name who plays Sarah, or plays J.K. Simmons is in it. Jason Clarke, I like. He's a fucking weird, creepy dude, and it was an interesting choice.
But I didn't like him in this movie.
No, his character sucks. It doesn't make any fucking sense again.
Is the most convoluted time travel movie ever made. I mean, we're talking about this series. It's part of it. We're talking about time travel.
Yeah.
And so this one
refresh my memory because I haven't watched that one in like a year.
It's even hard to recap. It's such a mess, and it's so convoluted.
They retcon the original movie.
Yeah, so
they retcon the original movie by having the Terminator come.
So Poppy, whatever, is sent back to rescue Sarah Connor, but like years earlier.
When she's like a 9-year-old girl, yeah.
Yeah, and so she grows up with a Terminator, Schwarzenegger Terminator.
Right, and then when Kyle Reese gets to 1984, she's already a badass and she's already got her own Terminator, and he doesn't know any of that.
He doesn't do shit the whole time, right? Yeah.
Right. And then they already have a time travel machine in 1984 that they've already made, and
for some fucking reason.
They already have this crazy apparatus to kill a T-1000 machine already, and yeah, it just goes kind of crazy.
But then John Connor is also infected with. He's a bad guy because he got infected going back in time with a some digital virus or something.
Right. It's all like over the place. This movie.
Nanobots.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. This movie. I remember walking out of the theater going, none of that made any sense. Like it was so unnecessary and ridiculous and convoluted, and this movie should be called Terminator Rube Goldberg. It should be the name of this movie. It's ridiculous. It's completely awful.
And doesn't he sacrifice himself at the end? But then he lives, so it's a happy ending. Terminator movies should not really ever have a happy ending.
Right.
Think about the first one. Even the second one was okay, it's a happy ending-ish, right? Like fuck that. Anyway. Wait, so I never watched
those two movies. There was also the TV series, which was
which I never watched.
That's right. Sarah Connor Chronicles.
I saw a few episodes of that. It was entertaining.
Okay. I mean,
did it get a decent run? Did they end the story in any way, or have any kind of
No, it got canceled after second season.
All right.
But Summer Glau played a female Terminator. She was the Protector Terminator, and then. I forget her name, but the red-haired singer from Garbage was the villain in it. She was a Terminator that was sent back to be president and CEO of Skynet or something. So there was some interesting time travel stuff in that series, but it really suffered from the TV budget and the
Mm-hmm. But the reason the first one was so fucking good is because it had
still
a small
better than
budget.
Salvation, better than Genesis, and better than the newest one, Dark Fate.
I never saw the newest one, so you guys have to.
I mean, it's like it
do your
wasn't
quick
as
review of that
fun
one.
as 3, but it was probably a better story than 3. So
for what? Dark Fate?
No. The
show. Yeah, the show was all right.
I would say the show
it wasn't
was probably
amazing.
Third in order of how I like them.
Yeah, I would probably say that too. But yeah, Genesis is totally convoluted, and then you get to Dark Fate, which they got Cameron back on board. He's producing, and I guess
there's one other thing about Genesis was that it completely shot itself in the foot. There was a trailer that came out for Genesis that basically told you the whole plot, including that John Connor himself was the Terminator. They show that in the trailer.
My whole life, I prepared my son to lead humanity in the fight against the machines.
On this night, we take back our world!
I'll go back. Let me save her.
Come with me if you want to live. Kyle Reese?
You know who I am?
We've been prepping for you to arrive for over a decade.
The Terminator.
It is nice to meet you.
I've been trying to teach him to blend in. I know it needs work. John.
Hi, Mom.
How can you be here?
What are you doing?
John!
What have they done to my son?
Not machine. Not man. I'm more.
You gotta get him off me! I'll be back.
What?
It was supposed to be the biggest plot turn of the whole thing. and they just completely ruined it. And whoever made that decision better have been fired, because
they probably were.
It ruined all the hype for it. It ruined all the box office potential, and it might have done, it might have had a couple of better weeks until word of mouth hit. But once everybody saw what the whole deal was, it was like there's no mystique anymore.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even that. It was just not a good movie, and it was convoluted.
But they shot themselves in the foot before they even got running.
The issue is with all this stuff is that the story of Terminator, they didn't build a big enough world, and it wasn't supposed to. Like, the first two were enough. It was self-contained, but it wasn't a big enough world to deserve all these sequels. And like, if they had done what I was hoping they would do, which is what fucking Cameron wanted to do originally, was the future, dystopian future of like the Judgment Day. Like, that's why I was super disappointed in Salvation, because I was like, now you can build this world that you can explore. Really. And then it was the same story. It was like John Connor and Reese and all that. And I'm like, who fucking cares about those characters anymore?
When they get to Dark Fate, they just decide to scrap everything ever made except for the first two. And now Sarah Connor's alive again, and but then they have to redo two. So they have to redo.
Oh, so they got rid of one of the best of the
basically what they do is they decide, okay, let's get rid of all the other movies, but we should redo 2 and 3, and we'll just make 3 this one. This will be 3 again. Because like they have the female Terminator come back, but she's like a good guy, and then there's like,
is that Mackenzie Davis? I like her.
Yeah,
she's a cool actress.
But the one thing that they do in this movie, because now she's alive, obviously, and Sarah Connor would have been dead or whatever according to 3, but she's alive, and then they get the thing that really ruins this movie, other than it's just way too overly nostalgic, even with its action sequences, is the fact of what they do with fucking Arnold's character. And they bring him in a little later, but it is the worst. Like, so John Connor got killed, right? I mean, if you're watching this podcast,
sure, who gives a shit? Kill him.
I don't
Kill
even
the motherfucker.
care. But then, when they find Arnold, he's an old man Terminator with a family now.
How does that work? Was he having sex with a toaster?
He explains it. He says, that once he killed, not only that, but it's the same one that killed John Connor in the beginning of the movie, which is a really shocking scene if you don't, know about it already. But he shoots a 12-year-old in the chest point blank with a shotgun, and then just walks away. And he explains that after his mission was completed, he had nothing to do, so he just started learning about people and basically became kind of a person. And
became a dad. He became a dad.
He says later on that he regrets.
Oh, fuck, I am not watching this fucking
John Connor. He regrets that he kills John Connor, so he sends messages to Sarah Connor every time a Terminator pops into their timeline. That's the other thing, is like, since he's from the future, he can sense whenever
this was a good idea.
There's a time bubble thing going on.
Oh my lord!
So
just fucking stop.
Sarah Connor's a Terminator hunter at this point, and when
and she's a total badass, and one-liner after one-liner after one-liner ad nauseum with Linda Hamilton.
All right, Jesus, what the.
It's really unfortunate.
This franchise absolutely will not stop until we do not want to watch.
I think they're
even
done.
the first 2 movies again.
Because the last 3 in a row have lost money.
Done poorly, yeah. They've all done poorly. They haven't.
I thought Salvation made like a bunch of money, but I don't know.
I don't think it did as bad as Genesis, and not as bad as Dark Fate. Dark Fate tanked hard. Because it was so expensive.
They don't understand about world building. That's the thing that bothers the fuck out of me. Like, you can't just have the same characters unless there's an actual reason for them to keep coming back.
And they don't have any respect for the idea of time travel. I mean, like they did in the first 2. They kept it. They made it work. But they just stopped giving a fuck and just make up whatever the fuck they want. However, and you're just kind of like, what? Shut up.
Yeah.
You know,
well, here's the thing: it's like
stupid.
good stories in general are encompassed by rules. But Terminator 1 had budgetary constraints, so they had to keep Terminator 1 small. Once it got big, then they're just feeding the bigness at that point.
Right. Well, that's the problem with most of these blockbuster movies, is when you have a limited budget, when you want to do something, but it causes you to be creative.
Yeah.
Think creatively. But when it's just like, oh, well, here's $35 million, just go make that work.
It's also the problem that James Cameron wrote this based on a fucking nightmare he had. He was doing it based off of Halloween, right? It started in such a small, genuine way with one voice.
Right.
And now it's like 7 screenwriters and another, like, directors who never touched it. Like, it definitely lost the soul of the project.
I bet there's writers that worked on some of these scripts that never even watched the first movie.
Yeah, I bet.
It seems
there's
like
probably writers that weren't alive when the first movie came out.
Yeah.
I know.
No, like, it just feels like there's no... Yeah, I do think that when it comes to filmmaking, it's such a hard collaborative process anyway. Without a firm vision, it doesn't fucking matter. Like
it could have been a good time travel series. It ended up being a bad time travel series because of how ridiculous and stupid it got over the last few movies. But the weird thing is, like, I should not like this franchise at all. At this point, with how many bad things or mediocre things they put into it. But the first movie is so fucking good that if they make another Terminator movie, I'll go fucking see it. That's how good the first movie is.
I won't if Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it. I want him to retire from the series.
I'll go.
That was another thing about Salvation. Arnold's not in
I like that he wasn't in it. That was
There's
the one
CGI
opportunity
Arnold.
to reset.
He was in it,
Oh,
though.
yeah. Which
There's
was whatever.
CGI
Again, it was
Arnold in the end.
goofy
which was
callback.
awful.
Like, that film is everything I thought they should have done with the franchise if they wanted to save it, and they fucked it all up. Like, that was their one chance to be like, okay, we could build this world out, we could follow new characters, we could, like... Because there's the whole Terminator thing is, like, endless, like, of Terminators versus humanity. In fact, I think the spiritual sequel, I think I told you guys this, the real spiritual sequel is what happens when there's a détente where neither side can win, right? And then it's the Matrix, where it's like, they call a truce, and then the humans are like enslaved, but then have their freedom. I'm like, they could have just like pivoted into the fucking Matrix, whatever. They could have gone so many ways to make it interesting, and instead they just rehashed the same bullshit.
I'll tell you,
over and
that's
over
my
again.
only prediction about another Terminator movie, which I don't think, if there's ever one, we probably won't see it for a long time. And if I think we see it, it's going to be the Terminator reboot.
Yeah, original. Yeah, slasher film.
Well, I don't know if that's how they'll do it.
To try and do that with the with Genesis, with the whole changing of everything. But
hey, I have an idea, guys. Let's just do
a reboot, though.
A low budget slasher film with a killer robot.
Right.
And then honestly, and get some beefy meathead to star in it. It'll be way better than the last fucking 4 Terminators. Anyway.
One other thing I was thinking of was a lot of the different bullshitty tropes that they hang on to from the first one. So there's the leather jacket and that whole Terminator costume that looks cool and
is in
and
everyone.
Leather jacket makes sense, but the sunglasses thing, in the first movie, he doesn't wear sunglasses until he gets his eye shot out.
He gets his eye
and then he
shot
pulls
out,
his eye out, which is a horrible. That's
body
the worst
horror
practical
scene,
effect in the whole thing.
It is, but it's still
cool
charming.
He puts these shades on so that you can't see that he has a missing eye hole.
Yeah, there's a story reason for him to do it.
Yeah, there's a story reason for him to do it.
It became a signature thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bullshit. And
that's what I mean.
Things like that,
when you
that erode the trust between the audience and the
I'll be
storyteller.
back. If another fucking character says I'll be back, which by the way, supposedly Schwarzenegger really struggled over saying that line. He wanted to say I will be back, and Cameron was very insistent that he says I'll be back because it just sounded cooler, I guess. And now that stupid fucking saying, which works fine in the first one, and it's not even that like if
well,
you
that's
didn't.
what I mean. They just they do all these fucking callbacks in all of the movies where
stupid.
someone is
Come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, but it'll be somebody else saying it. Say hasta la vista.
Yeah, Sarah Connor says I'll be back. In
they all do. It's
John.
They did that bullshit in Star Wars all the time too. Like in everyone, it's like. You're a fan because it's like you don't get any credit for watching a film. You don't get any fucking credit. Sorry, you don't no Reddit gold for you, motherfucker. Like, I'm so frustrated with that stuff. Anyway,
I know.
What's our final messaging to people?
Just rewatch the Terminator. Yeah, Terminator 1. Just rewatch that over and over again. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, if you got T2 under your belt a few times, you don't need to keep watching it. Just Terminator 1. It's perfect. Yeah. It's a perfect encapsulated fucking piece of action horror.
And understand why all these people went on to rule Hollywood. Go back and watch Terminator 1.
It's storytelling at its finest.
Yep, I agree. It's a fucking amazing movie. All right, guys.
Well, what's up coming up next though? What do you think we're gonna do next?
I don't know. Well, we're gonna do. We'll do in the next edition of the horror podcast. We'll jump on some slasher.
I'd be into that.
One of those, probably the most popular horror genre of all time. I would say, at least since the 70s. But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot in the upcoming
theaters,
movies world. So
I
mean, Tenet is on hold now.
In September, we'll get to review Bill and Ted 3.
Oh, I was gonna do a viewing party for sure of that one.
So. Yeah, I want to watch that.
Time travel. Have we done the first one?
No. Well.
Maybe
that's
we should do.
We'll do the Bill and Ted trilogy episode when we review 3 and
1 and 2 and 3. Yeah, you're right. Let's do it.
All right, guys. Hi, guys.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Later.
All right. Peace.